Is Lukaku now starting to show the same form that we've seen under many other big name signings? Was Lukaku tactically a poor fit for this team and hence a waste of money? Or are there things Thomas Tuchel can do to get the best out of Lukaku? After our 1-0 loss to Man City yesterday, for me, I feel the blame was equally shared in 3 equal parts. Those parts are Lukaku's performance, Thomas Tuchel, and teammates on the field as well. I'm going to give my honest take and thoughts using tactics to help back up my points. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. There is going to be a stream later, and without wasting no more time, we start things off and let's discuss Lukaku. Now, I think it's fair to say that Lukaku could still have done better in certain in-game situations in the game yesterday against City, but at the same time, was the system and were his teammates particularly helpful towards him? Absolutely not. It's not like most of the areas in which he was receiving the ball were very impactful. After that defeat, Tuchel was surprisingly vocal about his dissent towards Lukaku's performance in the game, which is a very rare thing because Tuchel doesn't really have a habit of putting players on blast or criticizing them publicly. But I guess my thing is, was this a particularly fair criticism to single Lukaku out after yesterday's defeat? We start with things and let's look at the heat map. As we can see, most of the times that Lukaku was involved in the game yesterday was in his favourite zone down the right hand side of the pitch. Lukaku prefers this area. Of course, down this side it allows him to, attack the spaces, dribble, run at his man with the instep of his foot as well too. And you can say that he wasn't particularly proficient, even though he was in the favourable zone in yesterday's game. We look at the amount of unsuccessful passes that Lukaku played. He wasn't really the presence that we wanted in the team to help relieve pressure for us when we needed to. Against City pressing very high, the outlet was to hit balls over the top, play them long, bypass the midfield, and you're hoping that Lukaku in these moments can hold onto the ball a bit better, take some pressure and relief off the team. Lukaku had 20 touches in the game yesterday, and he only completed 7 out of 12 passes his way. However, the most disappointing stat was the fact that out of 7 aerial duels, Lukaku won absolutely none. He got 0. Clearly that's not good enough, but let's now scrutinise things in further detail. Most of the service that Lukaku had to deal with yesterday were from balls off the ground. I think it's been proven time and time again, especially after his stint at Man United, that Lukaku is not that Drogba hold-up target man style player. For Belgium, for Inter Milan, they exclusively play ball to feet on the ground, and in these areas when Lukaku can receive with ball to feet, this is when his strength really comes to show. This is where defenders can't get close to him. And I guess if you're focusing more of your distribution towards him off the ground, are you necessarily going to get the very best out of what Lukaku is going to bring in the game? Most of these balls played towards him were low probability balls and balls where he had no support near him or around him. Now for me, I don't think the scapegoating of Lukaku is accurate or necessarily fair. This is why I feel his teammates in particular aren't particularly helpful, and it's been a common story of the rest of the team not being in sync with our attack either. Now for this part, you guys, I want to compare the service that Lukaku got in yesterday's game compared to how he's supposed to use them, and I'm going to show an example of the Belgium national team of their game against France. Let's examine these Belgium clips first. France first, of course. As we can see, this for me is the ultimate way in which you use Lukaku. If you spend this amount of money on a big name player like this, you're spending that money knowing that you're using those strengths and adding them to the existing setup. In this clip, we're seeing examples of Lukaku's quick movement off the shoulder of defenders being found with passes being played early and behind. We're seeing that when Lukaku's acting as a counter-attacking presence in the team, he's receiving these passes ball to feet in which his hold-up play with his upper body strength really comes to life, and this is where those advantages then take place. And this is how his strength brings benefits to the team he's playing for. We're seeing early crosses being played in front of Lukaku and in behind him as well, with his teammates clearly understanding the movement of Lukaku and where he wants to be and where he doesn't want to be on the field. And most importantly, when Lukaku is acting as that focal presence, he then has players like De Bruyne and Hazard stepping in field, playing 1-2s off him and being on the receiving end of his layoff passes. Now we look at a few examples of clips from the game yesterday, and we can see the complete opposite on the fields. Most importantly, I feel Azpilicueta a few occasions where he should be playing passes quickly to the feet of Lukaku and behind. He's not doing that, and I personally feel that the relationship between him and Lukaku is probably the weakest out of any of the teammates actually in the squad right now. Opportunities where Lukaku is on the shoulder of his defenders, wanting quality crosses inside the box to attack the far post. The quality of those balls aren't good enough. We saw his goal against Aston Villa, of course beating Mings. That is the distribution he expects because his timing really is world class. And that's why most of his goals come inside the box. We're seeing opportunities here from Pulisic where it should be a first time early cross inside the box. However, when Pulisic's not necessarily a wingback, his instincts won't be to look for that side of pass. And of course, the player who pays the price for that is Lukaku. We're seeing examples of Lukaku taking advantage of the spaces in between Laporte and Stones, getting in behind and around them as well too. And in these moments, they are not being taken advantage of. Of course, the rare time he was able to get the pass he wants, in particular start of the second half, good ball from Kovacic. Ziyech is in field in that position, similar to where Martinez would have been back during his Inter Milan days, freeing up space for Lukaku to go 1v1, and that was really his best and only chance in the game. You're thinking if he was more confident though that he's going to do a lot better from that opportunity. And early on in the first half, Lukaku should have taken a shot himself, he should have been greedy. Instead he looks to play in Hakim Ziyech. Again, at Inter Milan, he got 11 assists, and he was also looking to make those smart passes when he could. In that moment, it wasn't the right opportunity. I think Ziyech's run was quite poor. I don't know why he was still in an offside position. But these are two small brief examples of the only real quality service that he got throughout 90 minutes of football. And when you compare those moments, the amount of times in which Lukaku was not getting the right distribution, you guys, for me, I think it becomes a bit deeper than Lukaku being the main scapegoat and villain of yesterday's defeat. Now I want to discuss Thomas Tuchel. I'm going to start with a quote first, and this is when Lukaku was first signed. As Tuchel said, "We expect goals, let's talk around that," and he himself expects goals. It's why he's here, then we will see how far the impact goes. He's a big personality in the dressing room, and I am convinced that he will be a positive impact on Timo Werner, Kai Havertz, Christian Pulisic, the guys who play around him. He will open spaces and attract the focus from defenders. Now that has been right, and we have seen examples of this. Many a time Lukaku's ability to just pin defenders has allowed for the wingbacks in particular to take advantage of those spaces. You know, they've been left 1v1. They have time and space to make those late arrivals inside the box, and that's how the overloads work. We were seeing at the start of the season Kovacic's low-driven passes to find Lukaku really early and playing off of that. That was working too. And Tuchel's right. Your Werners, your Havertz's, your Pulisics, they're players that benefit off a focal point and of course attack the spaces in behind. However, yesterday there were two main things that prevented us from seeing some of the small glimpses that we have seen throughout the season. Number one, we had no wingbacks who are aggressive, who have pace, who have speed, that will drive and stretch play and run in behind. And two, we had no players even looking to benefit off of the small amounts of layoff passes that Lukaku was attempting to do. And this is where I bring up the system. In particular, I'm going to stick with the context being, was our system we used yesterday the best one to help us win the game? Because for me, I see it two ways. The system that Tuchel set up, it worked, it was correct, but it was correct if the plan was not to lose the game. However, was that system going to help us win the game? For me, I didn't think that was the case. Yesterday we had one shot on target, we created one big chance though, which was literally the same as Man City, with both clubs missing their big opportunities. But is that necessarily enough? With our main wing backs being out, we dramatically lack that dynamism, and it's that dynamism that not only Lukaku suffers from, but also the attacking players in the team yesterday, near Pulisic and Hakim Ziyech. Another example as well too was I wasn't too sure as to why Tuchel decided to play Ziyech on the opposite flank and Pulisic down the right hand side too. I think it was purely for defensive reasons, so I think that he wanted to have Pulisic just there with Aspi because he didn't trust a left hand side of Alonso, Pulisic and Sarr to of course cover the runs, cover the spaces. I understand that for like defensive balance. However, for me, the priority is always on the system, forever on the system, and there's never really a focus on getting the best out of attacking individuals. I think for me, this is where the disconnect does come into play. I feel like half the team benefits from this though, the defense, the wing backs of course, and the midfield players. We play a possession style game, heavy emphasis on tempo control, and you know, it can be quite slow at times, which kind of contradicts all the fast paced players we have that really rely on getting servicing quickly. And I think this is where something will have to be addressed maybe during the summer, considering the benefits that we saw from this asymmetrical 4-4-2. Now that we lack the wing back to really take advantage of some of the spaces being created. For example, see this clip here, Lukaku receives the ball. At Inter Milan, he has Hakimi on that right hand side who's already there, overlapping. With Reece James being out, it's a massive loss for us. He was displaying that same type of understanding, but Aspie just won't do that and can't do that. So is that necessarily going to help us to win the game if our attacking game plan, in a sense, is going to be hampered? In that asymmetrical 4-4-2, the attacking players are really more of the stars in that game. We saw what Ziyech could do against Spurs down that right hand side, being the free man there with his creativity on show, his ability to affect the game as well too. One of his best performances in a very long time. I look at someone like Pulisic, who under Tuchel hasn't really had any role that really benefits his style or will benefit his career actually. To be honest, down the right hand side, not once was there opportunities to isolate him 1v1 with his man, which is what you have to do when you have a winger that likes to dribble at his man and attack those spaces. We just couldn't do that. So for me, for him not to influence the game down the left hand side is a massive loss, because Pulisic, just as we see with Hazard and many other attacking players for Belgium in that national team, an inside forward who cuts inside, dribbles on the intercept of course, he creates those angles in which you can play layoff passes with, and you can attack the spaces left and behind. Instead, Pulisic was isolated very far away from the field and was not able to influence the game, which has been a common story from him, unfortunately, because he is not playing in a role that suits him. So not only do you have Lukaku struggling, you also have your two other attacking players alongside him not being able to properly support or actually influence the game how they would prefer to do. For me personally, as I say consistently, and I have been saying this since last season, I personally feel like Tuchel just hasn't found the right solutions to get the best out of the attack. Now it's interesting because reports came out later saying that Tuchel's been frustrated that he can't rely on a regular, consistent attacking trio based on the form that they all show. But my thing is that when all the players suffer and struggle, when every single attacking player is showing that same inconsistency and struggle, it's a bit deeper than that, and maybe it could be the system that isn't getting the best out of them. As you guys can see on screen, look at the multitude of different attacking lineups we've used under Tuchel. How do you build the understanding and relationship with your teammates when every single week there seems to be a new attacking front three? For me, it kind of displays a bit of indecision and a lack of assurance as well too, which I think will naturally reflect on the players you're picking. So far, the emphasis is too heavily reliant on the system. Our system is what wins us games, not necessarily our players, and I feel like we need to find a better middle ground, which I also accept could be hard to do this season because we lack certain profiles in the team needed to take the attack to another level. We can only rely upon this in the summertime, praying the ball can actually get the right deals done. But for me, I think the only best solution really to help with our season is to take those calculated risks at the right time. I don't think that every game needs to have the same approach. I think most games you need to be a bit more offensive and rely upon that individual ability in which we spent so much money on to begin with. My thing is, pick and choose wisely when to use each system. Big games I respect using the back five, but in most games with the talent we have on show, I want to see more of an asymmetrical 4-4-2. I want to see us taking a risk, sometimes even using a 4-3-3, because ultimately to be the best, you need to have that happy medium between the system and the players being able to perform that and express themselves at the same time. I want to end with things by examining Antonio Conte and Lukaku's time under him last season. There's a reason why Conte focused so much time on Lukaku to master the art of hold-up play and lay-off passes. As Conte said, I heard people say Lukaku was a donkey. I always said that Romelu was a diamond that needed work to smooth him out. And I think he's absolutely right. Lukaku has always been a ball-to-feet striker. If you're going to spend money on someone like that, I don't understand why you won't use that skill set in which he invested so much money to begin with. Lukaku constantly had Martinez as an option near him. These guys are playing off of each other. Sometimes Lukaku dropping deeper, sometimes Martinez. And of course, that allowed him to free up space for him to take shots and go 1v1 against his man. When Lukaku's receiving ball to feet, he always has Barella close to him, or he has one of the wing backs explode into the spaces created by Lukaku to begin with. When Lukaku made runs, they get found early because some of these patterns of play were worked on specifically and rigorously in training sessions. And I think so far the main issue I'm seeing under Tuchel is that Lukaku seems to be a bit of a target man some days and a bit of a link-up player on other days. And with how specialised football is today, you have to pick one and build around that. Most of those passes towards him are in the air. How is that benefiting him and that's not being one of his strengths at all? It's ball to feet. At Inter, for Belgium. And for me, I guess if you can't do that because you don't have wing backs that can exploit that spaces, then use a system that also brings that balance and of course gives you a platform to actually win the game and not just survive. So you guys, these are my thoughts and opinions behind the entire situation. You guys know I'm someone that would like to speak my truth and be honest. People think it's excuses or I'm still got a love affair with Frank Lampard. I don't really know what to say to you guys, to be honest. I just think it'd be a bit disappointing if, you know, you can only see things in such a binary way. But I'm hoping you guys enjoy the video. Very curious to see responses and your opinions towards this as well too. And on that note, I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.